mean, there are few maintenance jobs that have to be run at a particular schedule time. So for that, I know there are multiple shells, bash, K shell, but most of the time it has been KSH that I have been using.
Okay.
So why is it called scripting? I mean, I do know that I can use like a typical functional. I mean, I do use like functions and I mean object-oriented programming. I can write a shell script and a similar logic. Yeah, that's all I know actually.
Okay. So just to start with the basics, we all know Unix or Linux or AIX. These guys are operating systems, right? So in short, the standard definition for operating system is it's an interface between hardware and software. What is an hardware is something, if I want to explain to someone like a 10th grade student, I just simply say hardware is something I can touch, something you guys can touch. I was just explaining my cousin the other day that whatever you can touch is a hardware, whatever you cannot touch is a software, with respect to the computer terminology. So to get best out of this hardware, we have come up with the various industry solutions called operating systems. So that operating systems has many components inbuilt in it as part of a software, but two major components in operating system are kernel and shell. What is shell? And when I ask what is shell, shell is an interface between the front-end user or an applications and kernel. So kernel is like a human heart, but shell is what gives the instruction to this kernel, saying when you type a command called ls, you type at this place shell. Shell is basically an interface to Unix. So in short, shell is nothing but a user interface to Unix. So whatever we type, those being given back to kernel, and now kernel will translate that into an hardware understandable one, zeros and ones, and gives back to hardware. Now hardware gives the result back to kernel, and kernel sends the back result to shell. Having said enough on that, now you have mentioned few shells like bash shell and K shell or some other shells you mentioned. Why there are so many shells in the industry? Have you ever thought about it? Like, there is a file where you can list all the shells available in your system. If shell is a user interface to Unix, why there are so many user interfaces? Okay, let me open my putty. Right. So the list of shells available in your operating system can be listed in this file. These are available in this file. So if I talk about my platform, Linux, I have these many shells available. But why so many shells? If just shell is one interface, why people were not satisfied with one interface? Why people were giving, why the specific vendor like Linux from Red Hat is giving users so many shells, so many interfaces? Have you got any?
Yeah. No, really, I didn't.
Okay.
Thought about it.
To understand that, you need to understand the evolution of Unix operating system. So what happened is in 1970s, let me go to my day one. Now I'm just going to tell you a little story, but don't take me accountable on that story because I'm not 100% sure, but I remember I read this somewhere, but I like the story. So what happened in 1970s was these are the two guys, Brian and Ken, who invented Unix. So these guys wanted to develop a video gaming project. So when someone talks about a video games, they want a faster response from hardware. For example, if you yourself driving a car in a video game, when you say left, it has to turn left immediately. The drift has to be pretty faster. So, but these guys were not happy with the current operating system they have, Multics. I put multi word in a quotes because this is not this operating system is not just designed for response time, it's designed for user interaction, it's designed for X, and it's designed for Y, and it's designed for G. So it was not able to give the response time these guys were expecting. So that was the same time Dennis Ritchie invented a language called C. So with the help of Dennis Ritchie, these guys developed a complete new operating system called Unix. I highlighted Uni because this was initially designed for only response time, just to give a faster response time for their academic project. So they wrote this complete operating system Unix in 80% in C language and 20% in assembly language. Now later what happened is, once the project is done, they kept the source code open in AT&T Bell Laboratories, and various industry vendors like IBM and HP Unix, Sun and SCO, these guys were very happy with the source code and they liked the feature that Uni operating system is providing, and they took the source code and they started adding their own features and they released their own versions of operating systems into the market. Okay, but while this process is happening, while this process was happening, okay, they were more concentrated on adding features to existing baseline source code, but they never worried about user interface. And the user interface was kept open, in the sense the user interface was given to the open community, so that you write your own user interface and we'll pick it up the best one out of them. That's why the shell became as part of an open source. If you talk about a bash shell was not written by AIX. Even though I show you here, these are all the 6 shells available in this Linux box. These 6 shells were not written by Linux. Even you will find the same shells or similar shells in AX platform, but those were not written by IBM. These are the efforts of open community. So if someone is from a C background, so someone with a C background knowledge written a shell in such a way that the C shell will more make sense to the C programmer. Someone with no programming background at all, bash makes more sense, right? So that's why we see so many shells around, and out of them which one is a popular, it depends again. So bash is the most widely used along with the KSH at this time. And if I walk you to the little shell history, if you look at my screen, these are the first generation shells. When Multics operating system is in picture, these were the 2 shells. And the second generation is referred as C shell or a Bourne shell, because this was the same time C came in picture. It makes sense that C shell came in picture as well. The third generation is trusted C shell, Corn shell. There were n number of other shells even in picture, but they were not popular. They were just copies of these stuff. The fourth generation is called as Born Again shell, Bash, Born Again shell. Now, if these are all these shells, what is this SH? What is this guy SH stands for? Bin SH. So for this, I need to take you to this my first slide again. Okay. What happened once this source code was open in 1969 and 70 time frame? Each vendor took the source code, they started releasing their own operating systems. But what happened was, let's say if I bought a HP Unix operating system and I was not happy with the HP Unix performance or the costing model or whatever that was, and AX came into the market with AX 3.0 or 4.1, if I want to migrate from HP to AX, it was a nightmare that time, because each has its own configurations, each has its own way of writing the commands, and each has its own way of implementing the features. So that's where actually around 1995 all industry leaders came together and said that this is not how we want the systems to be going forward. We want a single Unix specification called as a POSIX standard that says that it's like a SQL standard, SQL standard, SQL 92, SQL 99, we have SQL 2003, right? I don't care what you do, what features you add, I want you to follow basic certain guidelines. That's what this POSIX standard talks about. I don't care what options you give it to ls, but ls command should be there to list files. So because of the single Unix specification, the only objective of this POSIX standard is portability. Portability is nothing but with a minimal effort, the vendor or the client should be migrating from one platform to another platform, right? Now, the interface that talks about that compliance with this POSIX standard is SH shell. This SH shell is POSIX shell. So no matter what platform you go, this is by default available. So that means if you write a shell script that can run with this POSIX shell, that can be ported on any other platform with a 0 changes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a little background. I know it's a little bit theory, but shell was completely given to open source community, open community. They added their own shells, own way of interfaces, and they named it their own way. Sorry. So
No.
if I go back to my slide, shell is just an user interface to Unix, and it acts as an interface between user and kernel, or application programs and kernel. It basically translates user commands into the operating system instructions with the help of kernel. Commonly used shells are these one, and they are available in etc shells. Now, to answer the second question, why it is called as a shell scripting, not as shell programming. So before I go there, any questions so far, Ratnakar?
No, I think I understood everything.
Okay. I heard you are a DBA or you are a DBA. So you know these two words called compiler and interpreter? Have you heard about those two stuff, compiler and interpreter?
Yeah, I mean, like generally compiler, like it's mostly used like for stored procedures, right? Like when we compile the code.
Ah, okay. So basically what happens is, if you wrote a program, basically, if you wrote some piece of code, and when you compile it, what happens is it will show you all the errors in the program. If there are like 10 errors, for example, if you wrote 20 lines of a program, or instead of calling it as a program, if you wrote a 20 lines of piece of some stuff.
Okay.
For example, if you wrote line number like this, if there is an error at this line number 3, a compilation error, some syntax error or something.
Right.
Okay. So what compiler does is, compiler scans each and every line. It goes to both syntax analysis and semantic analysis, and it will show you this at line number 3, line number 8, and line number 10 you have errors. That's what compiler does. Compiler shows the errors of the complete source code. But when coming to interpreter, what happens is it will show only the first error. The moment it hits the error, it stops there.
Okay.
Shell scripting acts a little bit as an interpreter, not as a compiler. And most importantly,
Got it.
yeah, if you want something to be called as a program, it has to follow certain guidelines, such as before you use any variable, the variable has to be declared. The variable has to have a container called data type, and it has to have a certain size. There are certain guidelines to be followed. But Unix shell scripting was completely written in a loose manner. There is no need to declare a variable before you actually use it. So since it is not following any of the basic programming principles, so it's called as a scripting. Just a scripting. You don't have to compile it, you don't have to run it. There are no two phases. In a program, you have two phases: compile and running. But in scripting, it's just like running the script. That's it. Running the sequence of lines. So it's completely written, you know. And
yeah,
that's a little background about programming and scripting. But what basically shell scripting is like, I tell my students this way, that you know, from childhood, you know, when we first go to a school, for most of us, English is not our first medium, most of the Indians here. So we learn alphabets. For example, assume English is your first language. We learn alphabets, ABCs, and to till G. Then what we do is we say A for apple, B for ball, and C for cat, and we try to learn words. We try to use those words to form sentences. The sentences will become paragraphs once we grow up, and paragraphs will become a nice stories, right? So from the childhood, learning alphabets to going to writing a big story, it's a big transition. Just exactly the same thing with shell scripting as well. Here, alphabets or words are like your Unix commands. See, ls is just a simple command. It just lists files. More, it just shows the content. Tail -f, it just displays the content from the last line. But when I put all these three things together, and when I give a nice music for those three commands, so that's what we call as a shell script. Shell script is nothing but a set of Unix commands which are executed as a single batch, basically. Now, using those alphabets like Unix commands, we basically create a nice story. You know, based upon the purpose, you write a shell script, like you said. If you want to take a backup, for example, in DB2 itself, we take level 0 backups, right, every week and most of the times, you know. So we don't, you know, sit in front to run that command. We just put that as part of one shell script and we schedule it through cron job or any other schedulers available.
Right.
Okay. So what are the various steps we need in handling shell scripts? The first thing is we need an editor. The editor can be VA editor or VAM editor or any other editor, or you can use a notepad yourself to create the program or a script in Windows and copy it back to Unix. So you need an editor, and once you create an editor, you need a way to run that shell script. And you can run the shell script in two ways. One is using sh utility, the POSIX utility, and the other one is by changing or by giving the execute permissions and running that script. Okay, before I go there, let me ask you one thing here. If I make dir, sorry, make dir RATH. When I touch a file called A, okay, any idea what are all the default permissions? There are, you know this, right? File permissions concept.
Yeah.
Okay. I am by default getting these default permissions. So
Right. 7. No, it's actually 555.
yeah, 4 plus 2.
No.
644.
644. Sorry. Yeah.
644. So it's basically like what permissions owner has and what permissions group has, what permissions others have.
Others have.
So if you look at, by default, you won't get, even though you are a owner, even though I am a owner here, I won't get by default execute permissions here, X.
Yeah, that's true. I remember that even the script that you create, put in a cron tab, used to fail because of the permissions.
Yeah, permission denied stuff. It's because of one way of security. So Unix is, see, it's like executing .exe in Windows. So it by default, even the owner does not have permissions to execute anything unless he changes the permissions using change mod.
Right. CH1.
Okay. And I'm not sure you ever noticed it. When I create a make dir temp1, by default you have an execute permissions. And if I take out these execute permissions from this temp1, you cannot do a cd to temp1.
Okay.
No, to entering into a directory is nothing but executing the directory. So if you want to enter into any directory, you need execute permissions. If I take out change mod -, execute from temp1. I took out execute permission here. You don't have,
Right. Okay.
I mean, myself doesn't have execute permission. Now if I say temp1, it's surprising. Hold on. No, I shouldn't be entering into it. There's something not right. Change mod 644 temp1. No, I think I'll double check on this, but I'm more than 100% sure that you need an execute permission to enter into a directory.
Oh, okay, sure. Is it because you are as root? Does that differ?
But still,
Okay.
say, yeah, I think you are right. It's because of root. You see, I logged into DB2 INST1 and I just created a temp1, and now you're getting the permission denied because there is no execute here.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay.
Execute to temp1, and if I say temp1, I can log in.
Okay.
I think
I never noticed it.
Yeah, I haven't tested this with root as well. So even I learned something. So maybe root has by default execute everything. Okay. Very good.
Yeah, I mean, I did work on AX, but I mean, obviously I didn't notice it till now.
These are minute stuff. I mean, when you go through a structure course, you'll understand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was trying to gain from the course. Like, I never really learned Unix like the way you are teaching, like from the basics. So I wanted that for two reasons. One is just to be, I mean, I have been working for a decent amount of time now. So, so when I do an interview, like, I mean, I had to be like really good at, even though I can get work done, they don't know that till I really get a chance to work. So, but I want to be in a position where I can even, be theoretically good with the daily stuff that I do as a DBA.
Exactly.
So,
So here is a thing, Ratnakar. Since you brought the word called interview, I tell my students that Unix and shell scripting, learning Unix and shell scripting is like your internal marks. I mean, if you are, while in our graduation, especially when I was studying my engineering, I have both internal and external. Internals are for 20 marks and external are for 80 marks. Internals will never alone make you pass in the exam. But what internals can help us here is if we cannot score better in externals, it will help us to reach that 35 mark. That's exactly the same thing with Unix and shell scripting. Even if I mess up my DB2 interview, and even if I'm pretty good in Unix shell scripting, I have a better chance at standing at the top one. You see the point I'm making? You see,
yeah, exactly.
even though I am like
Yeah,
100% perfect in DB2 and I don't know Unix and shell scripting, I say okay, but in our environment we need shell scripting guy too. I mean, it's not that they can hire shell scripting guy alone. So it complements.
exactly, right. Yes, yes. Yeah, that's what I realized, and I mean, I have been doing it, but the problem is like you have a set of scripts, and every time you want to write, okay, you plug in stuff and you Google stuff, and then like just get it over and
Okay.
done. But I know I could do better and write it in a more better format. So just thought a basic class would help me start on that. So
All right. So let's look at the first program. So like I said in previous slide, Unix shell scripting is nothing but a batch of Unix commands. That's it. So here I have five different commands altogether, like ls, pwd, sleep5, clear, and echo. There is no relation or there is no dependency between one command to another command. So this is just our first program, is maybe the hello world program. So when I type this,
Okay.
vi1.sh, when I say ls print working directory, sleep for 5, then clear and echo hello world, like 5 different things I kept as sort of one file. And here generally we follow .sh extension to just signify it's a shell script. But in Unix there is no mandatory thing that we have to give extensions as .sh only for shell scripts. Basically in Unix there is restrictions on extensions. When I do ls-ltr, by default I am getting 664 permissions. So when I say 1.sh, yeah, it says command not found, because there is a path environment variable. You are familiar with this path environment variable?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically your current working directory is not part of path. So all you got to do is export path is equals to $path:\dot. If we add dot current working directory, it doesn't matter. It does not just add this current working directory. In whichever the directory you are, now if you do echo $path, now dot will be added here. So what basically happens when you command like uname or any command is, shell does not have any rocket science in it. All it does is it goes by step-by-step predefined procedures, such as, okay, this guy typed something here, okay, and here this guy typed ASDF. Now let me check whether this command exists in this directory. If it does not exist, it goes to this directory. If it does not goes here, it goes to this directory. If it finds here, it stops here. It does not go to the next directories.
Okay. Right,
so
sure.
Where do you add dot even plays a crucial thing. If, for example, if you have 1.sh and if 1.sh is available in user local bin, this will be executed first rather than in your current working directory.
Okay, got it.
Once in a while, I remember I was literally struggled to understand a few years back why it's not picking up the current one, why something else is coming altogether. Because, when I say 1.sh, it's finding this in user local bin, not in dot. So it's up to you where do you place it, whether you place it at the end or at the starting. Okay. Now if you say 1.sh, now if you say 1.sh, this time you are getting permission denied. So there are two.
Okay. So the command not found is something, I mean, we generally set in a dot profile, right? Like in a work environment.
Yeah, in the path variable in .bash profile or dot profile we set it.
Okay.
Now, permission denied is a default error we get for the first time. So if we run it without it, there are two ways you can run it. sh 1.sh.
Okay.
You don't need permissions for it. You can also run as sh-x 1.sh. It will show little debugging information, like what command you are executing and what is the output. Or you can change the permission plus x 1.sh. And you can say 1.sh now.
So the plus x and minus x is just for that user, right? Like the permission.
Which one? Which one here? This one?
Like when you say chmod minus x and plus x,
is for you.
That's just the current. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
If you want to change it for a group, you have to say change mod. For example, if I want to take out x from the group here, I have to say -x. No, I have to say plus group. -x1.sh.
Oh. Okay. Okay.
No, but it's taking it's
Okay. Got it.
from
Yeah.
everyone. No, I'm wrong. But this is taking it from everyone.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah. And chmod 744 or those I know, but I was just trying to understand.
No, this is even I'm not a great fan of this, but I tested this yesterday and it worked in one environment, so just very
Oh, okay.
curious. Yeah, no, change mode with
Okay.
numbers is always the easiest thing. But I
Yeah. 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 I'm familiar with those, but
uh,
okay. But that's fine. I mean, I was just curious. That's all.
change mode G plus X 1.sh. Oh yeah, I think this plus or minus is not the syntax. So here I just gave change mode for a group execute permissions. If I say change mode
Okay. G minus X.
others
G minus X. I guess.
others, okay, group minus X 1.sh, execute is taken out.
Yeah.
And when I say change mode others plus X 1.sh, this guy got execute. When I
Oh, okay. Got it.
others, this both should be getting execute, group and others.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Now how about the Warner? When I say change mode plus X, all of them are getting it. See, all of them, when I say change mode minus X 1.sh, it's not only the Warner, it's taking it from everyone. Then what is the symbol?
Okay.
So group and others, what is Warner?
Okay.
I thought it's without this name.
Owner. Hmm.
Pattern not found.
At the end of the man page has some examples, I guess, generally.
I was just trying to go there.
Okay. Okay, I don't see. Just for the owner. I think there is something like U I see in that list. UG.
Okay, that makes sense. User. Yeah, user. Yeah, you are right. So change mod user plus X 1.sh. Yeah, you are right. User. UGO user group, and I remember in one platform I don't have to do this. By default, yeah, by default when I say without U also it works. I don't remember which one. But yeah, it's the version again. Right.
Yeah.
What I wanted you to get out of this slide is there are two different ways we can run a shell script. Just using sh if you don't want change permissions. And now let's look at a second program.
So I have a question with SH, right? Without changing permissions, can I also run through a cron tab? Like the cron?
You can do that.
Oh, okay, okay.
Because it's just calling the shell script, right? And all you got to do is in a cron tab, if you're okay, I think where I have this, somewhere here. Yeah. Here instead of command here, you just have to say sh and command. I mean sh and script name. basically.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Or you can just give a file name here. In that file name, you can call sh and respect to script name. Here you cannot say sh and command here. That's a wrong syntax. All you got to give is you have to give a file name. In that file name, as a first line, you can say sh and respect to shell script.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. But if I do a KSH, I remember if the permissions are not changed after I create a script, it used to not run. So that's why I was asking the question.
So when you say ksh and the file name,
No, I mean like the first line of the script will be like a bin and KSH,
no,
right?
that's a different thing. That's a different thing, and this is a different thing.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, what you are saying there,
So you're saying,
yeah.
go ahead, sorry.
No, what I'm saying here is to run a script, even if you want to go to a first line itself, you need an execute permission. You see,
Okay, right, okay.
once you go to the first line, how you want to execute rest of the lines in the shell script is decided by a compiler directive. Short bang, we also call sharp and bang, is the first line that says the following lines will be executed as bash. For example, here, if I do 1.sh and if I add something here, bin bash. So if I change mod user hyphen execute, and if I say 1.sh, it does not go to that file itself. First line itself, it does not reach.
Okay, right, got it, yeah.
So once it reaches the first line, that means it has a permission to execute the first line, right? So then the rest of the things will be executed as bash. It's nothing.
Okay, right.
What happens is all these shell scripts run in a child shell. I'm not sure whether you ever notice it there. All the
Yeah, I think, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I'll cover as part of a scope of a variable, but all these shell scripts will run as part of a child. If I say echo $shell, okay, when I say 1.sh and ksh, even though my shell is bash, it will open one more child shell with a ksh, and the following lines will be run under
Okay.
K shell. Anyway, that's a topic for next class too. So
Okay, sure.
yeah, I think you might have seen here u plus rx. Because my favorite thing is even numbers, but I've been trying to understand this plus and minus. All right.
Okay, got it.
So if it answers your question, Ratnakar.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Okay. Now let's look at next script. This is a script to clean up log files in var log directory. If you are an administrator, there is a directory called cd var log. Here you have messages and wtemp. These two files will keep getting accumulated with each minute of system runtime. So messages will have the messages log, the terminal messages, all that information. So we need to clean up these two files once in a while.
Okay.
So here is a little script that does that job.
Okay.
Just go through these ones. I just take a quick glass of water and come.
Sure.
Okay, I'm back. Basically, we are sending the null data to messages.
Yes.
So device null is nothing but there is no such device. That means it just empties the stuff.
Yeah.
You know the difference, right? CD hyphen. You know what that CD hyphen does?
No, I don't know this CD hyphen.
CD has few variants. For example, if you look at your present working directory, PWD is like not print working directory. It's a print working directory. It's not present working directory. It prints your
Oh,
current
okay.
working directory. And when you say CD hyphen, you'll go back to your previous working directory.
Okay.
No matter what, when you type CD hyphen, you'll go back to your previous working directory. It's like your previous channel in remote button.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah. I use just the CD to go back to home, but I never use this one till now.
Okay, CD will take you
Good to
wherever
know.
you are to home directory, and you can say CD tilde, it also takes you to home directory. You can see CD dollar home, it also takes you to home directory. These are three different ways you can go to your home directory.
Okay.
And you know, right? See, there is people gets confused between CD dot dot and CD hyphen. I mean, CD dot dot will just take you to previous, one directory above your parent directory. It's like up or down arrow.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, it's like up or down
Yeah, sure.
button in a remote. That's it.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
But CD hyphen is like your previous channel. Okay, very good. And hash is a comment. Remember, we don't have a
Yeah.
multi-line comments in Unix. We don't have multi-line comments. Hash is a single line comment only. And
Okay, right. Okay.
you
So,
see,
so I have a question. How does it? Yeah, yeah. I
go
think the
ahead, go
same
ahead,
thing I was about to ask.
go ahead, go ahead.
No, no. I mean, in the first line we use a comment, but I always had a doubt, like how is it differentiating it
Okay.
between the first line and the? Is it the not symbol, like the?
Yeah, this hash is called a sharp, and this exclamation is a bang, sharp bang. This is the only exception for this comment. This we call it as a compiler
Okay.
directives. So, you know, you remember in SQL we say we pass hints, right? Say that do an
Yeah.
index
Right.
scan, don't do an index scan.
Yes.
That kind of hint it is. But this is only valid once. Even if you write hash exclamation here, okay,
Oh, okay.
it's only valid for the first time. No matter where you place it, it's only valid for the first time. And if you write it here and if you again write it here, it considers the second one as a comment only.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Okay. Only for the first time wherever you place it.
Okay, so
Here is another example for short bang and comment. This is just a comment too. And basically
yeah.
the first line tells the Unix that the file is to be executed by bin bash. This is actually the executable bash location here. So you can say hash exclamation if you want something to run as a Perl program. You just have to say user bin Perl. If you want the following
Okay.
lines to be considered as a Java program, you just have to say user bin or respective location / Java.
Okay, got it.
So the only exception is first line. When it appears for the first time.
Okay.
All right. So I mean, like this, I have the examples one after another. Like I introduce next the concept of variables. So there is no declare sections. Then we slowly move forward and we do addition of two numbers and we read to do an interactive positional parameters. So then the scope of
So,
variables.
uh,
Basically,
do you?
sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead, please.
Just checking, like, would you introduce like awk and sed at some point in this course?
Yes, since you requested for the advanced scripting, yeah, it will be covered as part of it. So basically once this goes, the conditional statements, if and case statement, and which is followed by for loops and while loops. Okay.
Yeah.
And there is a cut statement that I introduce here, and little learn functions. How do you write functions? And little learn shell scripting debugging. How do you debug a shell script if there is ever a need? If someone wrote a 2000 lines of code, how do you debug it? To understand what are the tools available, like 3 different tools.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Later it's followed by sed. What are various examples? What is basically sed? You know,
Okay, sure.
how do we use it? There are a few examples on it. Then there
Okay.
are slides on arc.
So what will be your time, Ravi? Like if I say, because in the weekends, yeah, I mean this will work for me, but weekdays, like how flexible would your timings be?
I prefer to, my first choice is to have on a weekends, because weekdays it's so much hectic actually. So, but we can
Okay, makes sense.
maybe not every
Yeah,
day.
that's
Yeah.
in the morning. That
So
will work.
it again depends upon like how faster you want this shell scripting. So I advise that instead of you having continuous 20 hours in next couple of days or a week, if you give it more time and you go back to your environment and you spend some time there. For example, I give one example. So the other day we have been audited by an external party, and auditors given instruction that why on a production environment there are files exist with 777 permissions. Right,
Oh, okay.
these are permission issue. That's what we bugged up by auditors, right? That's what,
Right, exactly. Yeah.
why should 777 means is anyone can go ahead and delete it. Right? So
Yeah, right.
they don't want to see it because it's a security loophole on a production environment. So
Yeah, true.
here actually Unix team and I sat together and wrote a script to find out all the files. While finding out there are various scenarios came in that this directory can be excluded, that directory can be excluded, these file names can be excluded. So you see those stuff, you cannot see in,
Yeah.
if you know all these terminology like a find command and a grep command,
Yeah, exactly.
an xargs command,
Yeah.
you put all of them together and redirect the output somewhere. So it's not a small, I mean, they were looking at like how do you know all these. When it comes to practice, nothing else. So I say that give it some time, like I'm not saying for my convenience,
Sure.
but it's up to you. If you wanted to finish up in faster, we can see an options. But
No, what you're saying totally makes sense to me, because I really, I mean, I don't need to finish, I just have nothing that I have to just complete and get
yeah,
it
maybe
over
give
with.
it like
So
give it at
I'm good with.
give it at least like 4 to 6 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks is perfect. What happens is once the course completes, even I'll move on, right? Don't take me wrong, I'll move on with other students, and when you ask
Yeah, exactly.
when you ask me something, it comes as a priority, right? It all because it's all parts of priority, right? So I'll respond.
Yeah, sure.
When our classes are running, at least you have an thing that okay, I can catch this guy at a class.
Yeah, sure.